Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm here with Mark Fitzgerald-Cooke from Intelligent Business Partners. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks very much for being on. So if you could start us, as always, with giving us a bit more background as to who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it for, please, Mark.
Okay, so I'm Mark Fitzgerald-Cooke. I'm the MD of Intelligent Business Partners. We are a business brokerage, so we're offering the easy way I explain it to people is
Yeah.
that we're like a national estate agency for people selling businesses, not property. And we are very active in the space where more people buy and sell businesses. So we're like an auto trader or a right move. We're in a very active space. So if it's on the high street, on an industrial estate, on a trading estate, if it's relocatable, if it's online, that's where we operate. So typically about 50,000 turnover up to about 10 million.
Fantastic. And how long's the business been going?
13 years now. I have to double check that because every time I think I realize a few years have passed a bit quicker than I thought. So business, circa 13 years, and this is my seventh year with the business.
Brilliant. And what were you doing before? What was your transition into
Um,
the business?
I've essentially put buyers and sellers together since I
Mhm.
was about 20. So that was classified local newspapers, magazine publishing, worked with Auto Trader for many, many years,
Mhm.
was involved in the move from print to digital with that. I've worked in prop tech and run multiple websites. So I've worked with Auto Trader and in prop tech, Zoopla, Rightmove for my clients. So the really, really strong digital classified and marketplace background. And essentially, what we do now as in the business broking space, if you can think of it's like a marketplace with a data insight on top,
Yeah.
just to make sure those buyers and sellers are the right fit when it comes to buying a business. Which, as any business owner knows, is there's multiple facets to a business. So a buyer's got to have that perfect fit.
Brilliant. So, in terms of coming to you guys over another provider in your space, what are the reasons for someone to do that?
Yeah, good question. It's a good question because when I was sort of headhunted to come into the space, I had a look at the industry and I didn't love it, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
When you've worked with beacon brands, there was
Yeah, yeah.
there was a fair few operators in there that you wouldn't you wouldn't necessarily want your granny to be dealing with. So
Yeah.
the guys that own us and own a selection of other businesses, when I spoke to them, they were very much, look, we're trying to buy businesses and we believe there's got to be a better way of buying businesses than the way the market exists now. So the thing for us, reputation's huge.
Mhm.
Standing behind what we offer to people, and I think that probably best manifests itself if you go to Trustpilot, Intelligent Business Partners on Trustpilot. Nearly 500 reviews on there. Great, lots of people have got reviews for different things, but ours are always talking about they're naming individuals who help them, and they're very specific about Katie helped me with this, Sally helped me with this, Sophia helped me with this, Colette was brilliant with this, Matt was excellent, giving me the right advice. Angelos told me that what I wanted for my business actually wasn't realistic.
Mhm.
Martin gave me all the support, even though I wasn't ready to list yet. So that sort of thing matters, and it really encourages people to get in touch, knowing that actually I'm going to get some straightforward advice. And we always talk about people, it's what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. But
Yeah.
we make our money selling businesses, so there's no point in me. I've got to be able to evidence why someone should buy your business for the price we're marketing it at. And if I
Yeah.
can't, if I can't, I can only sell what I can evidence. So we have to be upfront and transparent from the off. And we often say, karma's not a business model, but it hasn't let us down. If you're
Mhm.
upfront, honest, transparent, there's a little bit of what goes around comes around, and we get a huge amount of referrals because of that.
Brilliant. And in terms of that, I suppose experience of a business owner coming to you with what is their baby, I guess, and having an idea of
Yeah,
what it's worth versus you sort of telling them that. How do you sort of manage that experience?
yeah. So the "it's my baby" thing comes up all
Yeah.
the time, and I was speaking at the business show a couple of years ago down in London. I do it every year, but this was going back a couple of years, and uh, my presentation actually had. Excuse me, let's turn on.
That's all right.
My presentation actually had um, a picture of a cute baby at the start, and it was like, everyone, there's 100 people looking at it, going, "Oh, that's lovely." So, well, that's what you think your business looks like.
Yeah.
Next slide, some snot covered food everywhere, screaming kid. I said, this is what everybody else thinks your business looks like, and that's what we're trying to manage. It's,
Mhm.
the fact you've got up for 30 years at 5 o'clock in the morning only matters if the numbers support the valuation.
Yeah.
And there's, business owners make brilliant decisions to grow their businesses. Ultimately, a business exists because there's a gap in the market and there's a market in the gap. So
Mhm.
they've fulfilled that. They've built the business out. Fabulous. But if they've been the one that's been driving it 6 days a week, 15 hours a day for the last 30 years, there's a problem there. And we need to address that. If the numbers aren't great, then the reality there we need to discuss. There's lots of, if they've got no contracted business, if it's huge amount of industries, especially ones where they've been inherited by the sons and daughters have run it and the parents founded the business. The contracts are, we meet at Christmas, we have a pint and we shake hands and we do it again for the next year. That doesn't transfer to a new owner. So there's a lot of tough conversations that need to be had. But we use a combination of, we've got really knowledgeable, empathetic staff, and we've got solid data that says in your sector, these are what people are looking for. This is what they like, this is what they don't like. Here's businesses we've sold like it, and we try and do as much heavy lifting with technology and stats and data, but we call it tech and touch. You've got to have a really good human touch, when you need it. It's a massive decision to make selling your business. And it's like selling a house, only worse, So we've really got to hold people's hands through the process, and which we do.
You've got like a transition between emotion and logic. You hold the logic side of it, but you've got to manage the emotion with the logic.
Absolutely. There's a balance between signposting the reality of the process without scaring the bejesus out of somebody from day one. There is a little drip feed of we make sure everyone goes into it with their eyes open, and we're very much about, we will give you as much information as we can for you to make an informed decision before you sign anything with us, before any money exchanges hands. You will never come back to me 6 months later and go, I wish I'd known that at the time. What we tend to get is people going, well, it wasn't quite as bad as you said it was going to be. Well, that's probably a better way, but it is emotional. There's a lot of moving parts. And, the relationship between buyer and seller is important. And, we'd like to say that everybody involved is always above board and scrupulous, but that's not actually the case sometimes. So that's where a good broker will bridge the gap and keep things on track.
Brilliant. Because it's such a pertinent topic, if there's sort of one thing or one or two things that you could say, if a business owner is not thinking about selling their business, but what they could do now in order to help that process when they do decide to move on, what could they be doing now that's going to help them?
No, that's a really, really good question. The question I get asked all the time is what sort of businesses sell? And the answer is good businesses. Simple as that. So, and what does a good business look like? Well, it's easy to buy. It's got its house in order. So your financials are all in place and they're clean and there's no anomalies. Everyone's got stuff that they want to get round to, but they don't. Staff are hugely important. Your staff contracts all in place and order and everything of that nature. Having a business plan, knowing the direction of the business, where you're going, really important. Clear explanations of anything that's just a bit odd or anomalous that's happened over the years. That's fine. Have clear transparency on that, because it'll all come up in due diligence. Clear on why you're selling is really important. People want to know, they like a planned exit. They don't want you running away from the business. That's generally not seen as a good thing. So it's really not very sexy. It's all about just having your house in order, making sure everything's very, very organized. One little tip I would give to everybody, two things to think about. Be clear about what you're going to do next, because it gives a bit of context. And if you've been in the same business 6 days a week, working in it, 15-hour days, you're going to have a big gap. Your partner will probably kill you, for starters, if you don't find someone to fill the time with. So that's really, really important. And the other thing that people don't think about is who does your financial reporting. If it's a finance director in-house in your business, and you want it a confidential sale, you don't want all the staff to know, you don't want them to know. If you suddenly start asking them for detailed financial information that you've never asked for in your life, they'll either think they're going to be out of a job or something's going on. So a little thing to think about in advance as well. You are going to need certain financial reports, and we can let people what they are. But start having them now, your management accounts on a monthly basis
Yeah.
if you haven't done it. So that's something that surprises a lot of people. They're like, oh, I need this info, and I've got no way of getting it without letting somebody know that the business is
Yeah.
for sale. So not exciting stuff, but simple, straightforward stuff that any well-organized, well-run business should have.
A process-driven approach as soon as possible. And if you
Yeah.
were going to buy a business, I guess, what would, thinking about the flip side of it, what would you want to see if you were going to part with your money?
And that's exactly what we say to business owners. Even when it comes down to things like valuations, somebody will come in and say, "Oh, but you valued it at 500,000. This other broker valued it at £1,000,000." Well, the answer is A, we'll go and get £1,000,000 off them then. But B, you're in this industry. You might not be an expert on selling businesses, but you're an expert on your industry. And we both know that you could go and rent a unit, get some staff, get some stock products, and everything else. You could set up that business for a fraction of £1,000,000. So why is someone going to, it's a make
Yeah.
or buy decision? Why are they going to do that? There's no logic to it. So it's just trying to simplify and help people understand. Think of it in terms of what you know as a business owner. So your point about flipping it is well made.
Thanks, Mark. Great shares on there. So, kind of you guys as a business then, and
Yeah.
reflecting on challenges, opportunities for you ahead. What does the landscape look like, especially in the times that we find ourselves in with buying, selling, creating, growing businesses,
Yeah.
and the budgets and the taxes and all things going on?
Yeah.
What are things like for you?
It's interesting. The reason people in our market typically, and let's say we're topping out at 10 million turnover tops with ours. So the driver of a sale is usually a major life event. Retirement, super typical. Ill health is also typical. Separation from a life or a business partner. There's a raft of bits there. Declining performance, loss of mojo. Things like that. Some people love starting businesses but don't like running them. But there's usually a life event of some sort that drives people to make the decision. And the big challenge for them is actually taking a step. People spend literally years getting ready to get ready, and so what does that mean for us in terms of the challenge ahead? We had a brilliant conversation with a lady last year. She'd spoken to me, she'd spoken to one of my colleagues, and she said we were open, honest, transparent, helpful. She couldn't have asked more from us. But when she went to our website, none of that was reflected in our website. So that was a bit of a sharp wake-up call. And we're like, okay, well, we need to get all of this into our website so people have got everything they need in there. AI is a great enabler for that. So in terms of the challenges ahead, massive amounts of educational information getting in our website. You're helping people make informed decisions with a nice light touch. I said earlier on, it's a tech and touch model. Technology is there to help enable us to share this information. But there's a human when you want to speak to a human, So the main thing for us is making sure that the right use of AI, that's an enabler, not a distraction. Because one of the other challenges with AI is not for us as a business, but in the wider space, is that AI becomes the virtual equivalent of my mate down the pub, and it's like, right, doctors will tell you, no, if your legs come off, don't Google what should I do when my legs come off, ring 999, and it's a similar thing in our space. And solicitors tell us they've got people with AI generated contracts that just aren't legal in this country there, from the US. So AI will be a challenge, but it's also a opportunity for us to help business owners understand what's involved, so they can make informed decisions and move forward quickly and confidently in the future. Brilliant. So yeah, it's exciting, and it's like kind of more of the same. We've laid the foundations, and we're looking forward to helping more people.
Cool. And what does the business journey look like today? If there's one word you could use it for intelligent, is it, people say it's kind of been a roller coaster, or is it steady away, or how's the kind of picture since you've been there over the last 7 years, Mark? What would you say is the kind of the business journey been like for you?
Yeah. Again, another good question. The thing I always think about is I give advice about people, make their businesses easy to buy. Yeah. From the outside.
Yeah,
The comparison with a estate agency is a solid one in many ways for people like we do. We are a famine and feast industry. You know that we will have. You could have two or three transactions that complete, and we could be getting six-figure commissions off the back of those. Another
Mhm.
month, you could have 50 completions, and you're getting two, three, £4,000 off those.
Sure.
Similarly, you could have a chunk of those where the buyers pull out at the last minute because they haven't got finance. So you've constantly got those plates spinning, as has every single business owner
Yeah.
working on contracts. So it is that you can take your pick from roller coasters, you can take your pick from famine and feast, but what we know is when there's all that turbulence and all that movement, what we can do is be consistent in our advice, in the experience of our clients, in doing the right things day in, day out. And, that helpfully smooths out some of those some of those rougher days. But, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And it keeps it exciting.
Definitely. Thank you for that. So, in terms of your biggest lesson then through all that, leading the business, what would you say that is
Um,
today?
it's not that intelligent. It's from like everything I've done.
Yeah, yeah,
I worked with a brilliant lady. God knows she was patient when in one of my early days at Auto Trader. But one of the things that she sort of codified for me that luckily I did anyway, but it's always served well. Great believer in catch people doing stuff right. It's dead easy to walk around and say, "Hey, that was really good. I saw that," or "That sounded great on the phone," and it's worked from day one. People sit up a little straighter. They're a bit more eager to get on and do the next
yeah,
thing well. That doesn't mean we're a shower of tree huggers who sit there, telling everyone to get in touch with their happy place. Sometimes there needs to be a sharper conversation. But if you set expectations, you give people the right direction, you give them the tools to do the job. They're aware of the rewards and the consequences. And then just trust people, catch them doing stuff right, reinforce the good behavior, give them the tools to
nice,
get on and do it, and then let them get on and do it.
awesome. Kind of building people up, not knocking them down.
100%, 100%.
That's what we
That
like.
old thing about they'll forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel is very, very true.
Sure.
And again, full circle over the years, people have come back to me and said, look, I know you gave me a kick up the backside and I didn't like it at the time, but it served me well. Or other people said, kind word when I was in a bad place, it really, really helped out. And that's very rewarding.
And is that what inspires you, Mark, to do what you do? Or is there anything else in terms of reasons for
Yeah,
getting out of bed every morning to go to work?
no, again, good question. I'm naturally annoyingly enthusiastic and optimistic. And I am very much a morning person in a house full
Yeah,
of people that are not morning people. So I am one of those up at 5 o'clock, getting out, very, very,
yeah,
very, very irritating first thing. But making a difference is in people's lives is massive. We talk about intelligent, we sell businesses is our kind of strap line, but we help people get from, where they are now to where they want to be in the future. Great retirements,
yeah.
peace of mind, because ill health has meant they've got business they can't fulfill, and or things that are pressing on them. And we help at a very emotional time. We bring a bit of calm and reason. And again, I talk about our reviews of people, just how happy people are afterwards, and knowing that in some small way you've made someone's life a little bit better. At the end of the day, well, that's pretty good.
Excellent. Another good share. Thank you. So, in terms of advice for someone, say, starting in your industry or even reflecting on your own career and starting
Mm.
out, what kind of piece of advice would you give in hindsight?
I'm a great believer in like every day's a school day. Never stop learning.
Yeah.
The thing about being the smartest in the room, being the wrong room, absolutely true. Smart work trumps talent most times, absolutely true. So, it doesn't matter what age or what industry or anything else. I think those kind of things just stand. If you're always open minded, if you always want to learn, I got quite a senior sort of sales job, management job when I was relatively young, working with a lot of older guys. And one bloke, and the question you always ask is, well, why haven't you promoted internally for this? And they said, well, didn't get the right person. Anyway, day one, fella came up to me and said, I should be doing your job. I've been here 20 years. and I've got 20 years experience. And I just said, when was the last time you learned something new? What was, and he said, I've got 20 years experience. Long and short of it was, it takes 6 months to know what they were doing. That guy had repeated that for 2 years. So what you actually had was 2 years experience repeated 10 times.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not 20 years experience. So, that advice about always be learning,
Mhm.
always be open, always appreciate everyone you meet can teach you something. I'll ask the people at the coalface in what I do, how do I do this? Because they do it every day,
Yeah.
and that again feeds into catching people doing stuff right, and it builds up. So, never stop learning, always be open to learning.
So that's a good point to end. But just before we do, in terms of sharing any latest news about what you're up to, or of course, if people want to get in touch about selling their business, they've got any questions, where can they do that?
Yeah, so intelligent.co.uk, that's our website. Mark.fc at intelligent.co.uk, or Mark Fitzgerald-Cooke, Cook with an E, on LinkedIn. I am, whether it's a good or bad thing, but I'm the only person with my name on LinkedIn. So yeah, it's
Easy to
you
find.
can contact me there as well. And as I said a couple of times, anything, just ask. We're always happy to help. And if we can't help, we'll steer you to the people that can. We've done that with Action Coach many, many times with people that have come to us not quite ready to sell yet.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate sharing all that you have, and I'm sure a lot of people will find what you've shared valuable. And I wish you all the best for the future success of the business.
No, thanks very much, Mike. My absolute pleasure.